Hunger and the Global Food Crisis. I'm Steve Hendricks with your Global Minute. Did you know that in 2023, over 800 million people worldwide face chronic hunger? The crisis has been made worse by conflicts, climate change, and economic disruptions. For example, the war in Ukraine has significantly disrupted global grain supplies, impacting food availability and prices globally. Ukraine and Russia together account for about 30% of the world's wheat exports. Russia's blockade of ports and destruction of infrastructure has left millions at risk. Additionally, severe droughts in East Africa have led to devastating crop failures, putting millions of lives in jeopardy. The United Nations has declared a state of emergency in several regions due to the lack of food and water. Economic instability from the pandemic has left many countries struggling to recover. Food prices have soared, making it harder for families to afford even basic necessities. The World Food Program estimates that we need $7 billion to address immediate food needs. Food scarcity is at the core of many conflicts around the world. It's crucial that we act now. Supporting international aid organizations and advocating for sustainable agricultural practices can make a difference. Diplomacy is also essential if we are to secure shipping routes so that food can get to people in need, including Gaza and Sudan. Hats off to my old colleagues working across the globe in the Feed the Future initiative with the U.S. Agency for International Development, the U.S. State Department, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Kudos as well to my colleagues at the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, the African Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and of course, the World Bank. Make your voice known. Please like, share, repost, favorite, comment, follow, and subscribe. I'm Steve Hendricks for your Global Minute.
In the coming years, millions of people around the world could face a crisis unlike anything we've seen in decades. Experts warn that 2026 and 2027 may bring a global food crisis fueled by crop failures, rising prices, and climate chaos. But what is causing this looming threat, and could it spiral into a catastrophe? Today, we take a deep dive into the factors threatening the food on our plates and what it could mean for the world.
History is truly at a turning point. Global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever. The profound challenges to mankind, such as climate change, are globally interconnected and require collaborative responses.
Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is already reshaping agriculture across the globe. Extreme heat waves in India and Africa have destroyed wheat and rice harvests. Unpredictable rains have flooded fields in Europe and the Americas. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization reports that staple crops like wheat, corn, and rice are increasingly vulnerable to climate shocks. Even small reductions in yield can trigger price spikes that ripple across continents. For nations heavily reliant on imports, a bad harvest in one region can translate to empty grocery shelves and soaring prices thousands of miles away. And with global temperatures projected to rise further, the question is no longer if, but when food scarcity will hit harder than ever. climate is only one piece of the puzzle. Wars and geopolitical conflicts are already disrupting the global food supply. The war in Ukraine, a major exporter of wheat and corn, has caused millions of tons of grain to remain trapped, pushing prices higher. Supply chains, still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, remain fragile. Rising fuel and fertilizer costs make it harder for farmers to grow crops efficiently, while sanctions and trade restrictions further limit the flow of food. The result? Even in countries with sufficient food production, prices are climbing, leaving the most vulnerable populations at risk of hunger. Economists warn that if conflicts persist or escalate in new regions, the crisis could worsen dramatically in 2026 to 2027.
We maintain a strong commitment to global food security, and Sweden will always stand with Ukraine. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine continues to cause immense suffering, and its consequences reach far beyond the battlefield. By targeting ports, grain silos, and shipping routes, Russia is deliberately undermining global food systems. These actions are not just attacks on Ukraine and Ukrainians, they are also attacks on the world's most vulnerable. Today, I'm proud to announce that Sweden will contribute with $3.1 million to the World Food Programme and the Grain from Ukraine initiative. This funding will help ensure that Ukrainian wheat continues to reach those most in need, families facing hunger in regions already strained by conflict, climate change and economic hardship. Slava Ukraini.
Global food prices have already reached historic highs. The World Bank reports that basic staples, rice, wheat, corn, and cooking oil, are more expensive than at any time in the last decade. For families in low and middle-income countries, this means difficult choices: buy less nutritious food, go hungry, or sacrifice other essentials. And even in wealthier nations, inflation is straining household budgets. Economists warn that the combination of higher prices, inflation, and reduced crop yields could create a perfect storm, pushing millions more into food insecurity by 2027. While no country is entirely immune, some regions are far more at risk. Parts of Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia, already struggling with political instability, drought, or flooding, could face severe food shortages. The UN estimates that over 800 million people are already chronically hungry, and without intervention, this number could rise dramatically. Even small disruptions in global wheat or rice production could have devastating effects in countries that rely heavily on imports. Humanitarian organizations warn that without rapid action, famine and social unrest could spread in the most vulnerable regions.
It's so great to be back in Central Park for Global Citizen Festival 2025. It is a beautiful day and we're looking forward to seeing significant commitments made to really drive forward the fight against poverty and injustice around our world. Now is a time more than ever for people to come together, and it's great to see so many people gathering here with world leaders, with musicians, with artists to use their voice to drive commitments that can actually really drive action and change around our world. So we're excited to be here. We're going to be following along and look out for a readout on what happened at the festival.
So is there hope? Experts say yes, but time is critical. Solutions include investing in climate-resilient crops that can survive droughts and floods, strengthening local food production to reduce dependence on imports, improving supply chain logistics to ensure food reaches those who need it most, reducing food waste, which accounts for nearly a third of all food produced globally. Governments, NGOs, and even individuals can play a role in mitigating the impact of the looming food crisis. Awareness, preparation, and action are key. The global food crisis of 2026 to 2027 is not guaranteed, but the warning signs are clear. Crop failures, rising prices, and geopolitical instability could converge to create a devastating situation for millions worldwide. By understanding the risks, preparing for the worst, and acting collectively, humanity can prevent the worst-case scenario. The question is, will we act in time? Stay informed, stay prepared, and remember, every action counts when the world is on the edge of crisis.